Andre Bright, your executive coach, and this is the attain Burnout series. What day is this? Day number 27, and it's bank holiday, right? So I'm going to be doing a few extra sessions today. So there's going to be one now, one maybe around, I don't know, like 11, 12 o'clock, and then another one around 4 o'clock. So I can catch up on a couple of sessions that I missed. But today I'm talking about creating a path to your wellness. And there might be another one. I'm developing this framework at the moment. So I will talk about that later on. Good morning, Henrietta. Good to see you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So I'm going to do a session on the framework I'm developing that I use to help people out of burnout. And it's not necessarily a steps approach, but it's more like philosophy, like how to, there are certain aspects that, like I've said before, people mostly think about when they think about burnout. It's how to manage your time management and things like that and boundaries. But there's more to it than that. And so the framework looks at some of the underlying principles that help you get out of burnout that aren't spoken about so much. And I think that it's just something that's needed. But today I'm looking at the 5 steps to creating a path to wellness. And to be honest, this is a framework that talks you through a path to get to anything. There's point number 5 actually is quite important. I think it's not something that people always do, and without it, end up feeling this cycle of going back to the beginning again. Once you feel great, you start to, have this, and then you add more on, and then the whole thing starts all over again. So hold on for number 5 to see how to stay out of something once you manage to get out of it. But I wanted to start with a quote by Zig Ziglar. It says, "A goal properly set is halfway reached." The reason why I want to start by that is it can be difficult when you're in burnout to think about goals and think about what it looks like on the other side. It can be difficult, but it's necessary, because if you aren't able to shift your mind from what you're experiencing to where you want to be, it can prolong the process. And although you have to face whatever's keeping you there, because often it's not about the tasks that are on your list, it's not about the things that you're experiencing around you. Often it's about what's happening internally in belief systems. It is about what it is it about us that feels the need to feel responsible for certain things that may be out of our control, for example. Once we get to the root of all those things, we realize that actually this can be dealt with, right? But we have to put our minds past the problem to be able to get past it. Sometimes it's like, okay, if I was to be on this other side of this problem, what would I have done to get there? And then you start to put this framework together and look at what the steps might look like. Sometimes there might be tangible things that you can do. Sometimes there might be intangible things. So goals actually work, right? But we often limit ourselves to the use of them for the tangible things alone. So your next job, your house, your a spouse, maybe, right? Your location or a financial goal. But we can also use them for the intangible. So that can be your physical, mental, emotional, spiritual well-being, right? So, but the way we do that, by doing so, you can set and attain those goals so they don't just end up leaving them as dreams effectively. Oh, it would be nice if I was to feel this way about life. It would be nice to be motivated. It would be nice to feel like I'm living a life of purpose. It would be nice to live in a space where I'm not thinking about money. It would be nice to be in a healthy relationship. It will be nice. Yes, it will be nice. But if we don't set goals on how we're actually going to get there, then we may never get there. And one of the things about that is a lot of those things that I mentioned just now, the examples of what we often look for goals at, are we think to ourselves about the external. So for example, if it's a relationship, we think to ourselves, what's on my list? What do I want from this person? But we don't necessarily think about who I need to be able to attract that person. So, and that's the bit that we actually have control over. I might bump into someone who is all the things that are on my list, but unless I'm the person who's ready to be in a relationship with that person, Henrietta said, "That's great. I've never thought of it like that." Yeah, like I've really started to reflect on a lot of the approaches that we have to things like burnout, And I think the coaching models and principles that I use have helped me look at things differently. And one of the things I like about coaching is when you're sitting with a client and you help them through an example or exercise, for example, they will approach it in a way that you may not have even considered, and it will make me reflect on me and life and the way I view the world based on how they navigate the space. And once I do reflect, I tend to incorporate it back into my practice. So it's a 360 process that I tend to find. But like I said, when you're doing that in terms of setting and attaining your goals, you can also do it for how you want to experience life, right? So, how do I want to live? How do I want to feel? What is the impact I want to have around me with the people who get in touch with me? What is the memory I want to leave in people's minds when I leave the room? Like all those things are things that we can set goals for as well, but we just need to think about it like that. Once you actually decide that I want to set this as a goal, then you can think to yourself what this will look like, how I can measure it, how I can improve it, how I can make this a way that is more efficient. What is the 80-20? What are the 20% of the things that are really getting me the impact that I can increase, you know? But we often don't do that. We just accept that this is our experience and then we don't do anything about it. We just leave it as a dream, we leave it as an idea. But it's like going back to Zig Ziglar's quote, a goal properly set is halfway reached. So when we actually really properly set it and we can see a clear route, we're already halfway there. And and I say that because it means that we've taken that first step, and that first step is often the longest one or the hardest. I'll give you an example. If I am going to change jobs, for example, right? What you'll find is the procrastination is the longest part. So that it might take you years of unhappiness before you actually make the move to do so. But then once you decide and you're like, this is what I'm going to do, I'm going to apply myself in this way, I'm going to do my CV, I'm going to speak to certain people on LinkedIn, I'm going to do this, I'm going to make 12 calls a week or day or something like that. And I'm going to go to these networking events, I'm going to build my brand, I'm going to do these things to attract attention, I'm going to get my PR sorted and start writing articles and get people talking about it. I'm going to, interview people and start a podcast and in a specific niche so people can see me as a voice of influence in this area. Once you decide to do those things and you create a plan and then you act, it might take 3 months, for example, to get to your set, to get to that new job, to get to that new opportunity, whereas it took you 3 years to procrastinate about the idea. So once you properly set your goals, you're already half reached. You realize that a lot of the time it's a lot easier than we think to ourselves. We complicate things in our minds. So it's really important for us when we actually want something to actually think about how we're going to get it instead of just leaving it as an idea over there somewhere. If we genuinely want to change, then that's going to have to be one of those opportunities, one of those processes. Sometimes, but very rarely, it will just land on your lap. But here's that's something I want you to think about, going back to the relationship idea. What happens when that opportunity lands in your lap and you're not ready for it because you haven't been prepared? They say luck is a mixture between preparation and opportunity. If the opportunity comes and you're not prepared, you won't get that. If you're prepared but the opportunity doesn't come, then you won't get that either. But you need both. You can't have the opportunity and not be prepared because then you lose that opportunity. So when it comes to whatever the goals, and in this case, we're talking about burnout, right? So an opportunity for you to come out of burnout might look like um, building a relationship with somebody who I can rely on, right? I can trust. If we don't think to ourselves, how can we set a goal to achieve that? Then we won't get there. We can accept that I just don't trust anybody, and that's fine. But with that, you need to accept that that means that there will be no change. If you accept that you cannot, will not, and will never trust anyone, then you won't. And if you don't, then you won't have people you can speak to when you're in times of need, which means you will continue to have to deal with everything yourself. The next step is deciding that I want to be able to trust someone else. And then the next step after that is thinking about how and who and when, etc. And that's where we come on to what we're talking about today. One of the secret ingredients to this is the idea of scaling. So I say two of my favorite coaching approaches are the solutions-based approach and the Oscar method. Both of them use scaling. I won't go into what they actually are today, but both of them use the idea of scaling. Scaling is like, between 1 to 10, 1 being zero approach, or like bad or most pain, for example. And 10 is where exactly we want to go. Like, this is the dream state. This is if everything was at 100%, that's where we want to be. And we use it in any kind of way, shape, or form. And I'm briefly going to frame this session by talking about the wheel of life. And I mentioned this before in certain videos, but the wheel of life is pretty simple. You've got a wheel. In the middle is the dot, and then the spokes come out from the center. Each of those spokes have a different part of our lives: emotional, mental, spiritual, financial, career, relationships, recreation, etc. Right? I mean, in theory, you can create your own wheel of life, but if you Google it, you'll see what the spokes are. Each of those spokes go from 1 to 10. And the idea is we can use those spokes, that wheel of life, to see where we are in different areas. What we often get is we might feel trapped, we might feel down, we might feel heavy and weighted, not necessarily because of one thing, but because of a combination of different things that we may not be paying attention to. You might feel like, why am I feeling so unhappy? But I've just got a new job. But then what you don't realize is you're still suffering from grief from something else. Okay, I'm in a new relationship, but you're also not getting the most from work, and that's 40 hours your week, right? So you're like, it's a good way to step back from your life and look at it as a holistic framework and say, these are all the things that are happening in my life that contribute to my wellness. Where am I on each little thing? And you can track it over time when we come to that, right? So I'm using that as a basis, as a foundation for this talk today. So there's 5 steps for creating your path to wellness. Number 1 is reflecting on your needs. What do you actually need, right? That's the first step in any kind of way, shape, or form. It's awareness. Where am I on these levels? Like I said, using the wheel of life is a good way to do that because it breaks it down. Am I where I want to be financially? Am I where I want to be emotionally? Do I have the emotional intelligence to deal with the things that life throws at me? Am I able to reflect? Do I have the right people around me, my network? Like, what are the needs I have? Like, do I need to feel seen and heard? Do I need to feel comforted? Do I need to feel respected in certain parts of my life, whether it be at home with my family, friends, my partner, at work, with my boss, my colleagues? Do I need to feel like I'm moving forward in some way, shape, or form? Am I getting frustrated because I've actually just had the same job for 5 years and now I want a change? I want to feel challenged again. Like, what are the needs that I have? All of these things can contribute to your acceleration towards burnout, because if any of those things are off for a prolonged period of time, it can cause stress. And that stress, undealt with over a long period of time, can lead you towards burnout, because there's something about you which is pulling you one way, but your actions are keeping you in a certain place, which is building that tension within you. Right. So use the wheel of life to reflect on your current state, but also thinking about, what am I lacking, but also what do I have? Like, what do I have? Where am I doing really well? Because that's something that burnout can kind of help us, kind of distract us from. Things may be going well that we're not grateful for because we're so heavy with a specific area of our lives. But it's important to look at our lives as a whole to see, what are my wins? Where am I feeling gains? Where am I feeling that my needs are met? Right. And appreciate that to help balance out the negative emotion of whatever's dragging us down. And identify areas of your life that may need improvement. And I say improvement as that, as opposed to like a complete shift. One of the things you don't want with when it comes to the scaling is to be at 1 and decide that you want to be at 10 tomorrow. Sometimes that's not possible. Thinking to yourself realistically, can I go 2 rungs up? If I'm at 4, can I get to a 5? And what would a 5 feel like? Right? We'll get to that in a second. But it's important to think about it like that, because I think that's another thing that can cause stress, is feeling like I need to be making 6 figures today. Right? And if I'm not making anywhere near that, yes, there are things I can do to get there, but I may not get there today. I may not be able to throw an event together, or do a trade, or get a job that's going to pay me this much and get the account money in my account today, right? But maybe 3 to 6 months might be more realistic. Okay. So reflect on my needs. What is it that I actually need right now? What am I missing? Who am I missing? What is the deficit in my life at the moment? And consider your physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. When I mentioned that, spiritual as well, like, what am I giving back? Am I feeling detached from the world because I'm not feeling like I'm contributing to anyone's life? Am I not improving anyone's life in any way? Am I not connected to nature? Am I not connected to God anymore? Am I detached from these things? What are the things that I am in need of that I'm not getting? Okay. So once you've reflected on your needs and you know what they actually are, then you can move on to the next step. And the next step is setting smart goals. And I know you've heard about smart goals before: specific, measurable, attainable, relative. What's the word? Relevant. That's the word I was looking for. And time bound, right? So those would be the 5 things, SMART. But I don't often see that this particular tool used when talking about burnout, but it's really important, and I'll explain why. So specific means that you're not just saying I want to feel better, or I don't want to be burnt out anymore. Like, being really specific. Think about a time when you weren't burnt out, when things were feeling great, and try and channel that emotion, that circumstance. What were the things that kept you there? What was going on in your life spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically? Was it because you had the right support system around you? Was it because you just had a promotion? Was it because you just knew yourself? Like, were you dealing with your trauma? Were you dealing with your conflicts in certain way? Able to build friendships? Were you going out and experiencing new things? Did you just come back from traveling? Like, what was it about the spirit, a specific period of time where you weren't burnt out and you did have incredible capacity to feel, to connect, and all these kind of things that put you there, right? And be tangible about it. Be really specific. I had 5 friends I could go to for anything, or I had 2 friends I could go to for that. I had my mum who I could go to for that. I had my partner who I could go to for that. And I had someone at work who was a mentor who I could go to for that. And those 5 people were 5 different roles in my life that I really needed. And so I've realized at the moment I only have 3 of those, and I'm missing someone. I don't have my mentor at work anymore because I moved. And I don't have I'm not currently in a relationship, so I've got no one to like experience the goals and the shifts of life with, right? So then you're like, oh, okay, so these are the tangible things that I need in my life. Then you can go on to the next one, measurable. So what would it look like when I'm achieved that? How can I know that I can tick that off the box? Because one of the things that's a problem with goals, if you're not really specific and measurable, is that you don't know when you've achieved it. If I've got a financial goal, and let's say finance is one of the things that's worrying me, I'm not able to pay my bills currently. I did a talk once before when I talked about the stages of finance, right? So you might be completely financially excluded, right? Which is you don't even have a bank account, you're homeless, etc. You might be financially unstable, which means that you're struggling, your income is not enough to cover your expenses and you're currently going down. You have financially stable, which is like your income is equal to your outgoings, but if anything happens, you need to go to the doctors, for example, you would just break through, which also is stressful because you're worrying about making sure that you're maintaining this balance because anything could go wrong at any time. Then you have your financial, what's the word I'm looking at? Financially stable. I guess you get up to the point with financial freedom where you're you have enough in your savings, etc., and all that. Getting further along those lists and being really tangible about what that looks like, knowing exactly what my outgoings are and then knowing exactly what my incomes need to be. So I don't have to worry about that anymore, can release ourselves from a certain stress. Look at the pandemic. A lot of us went through it where we realized we didn't have a nest egg, or we didn't, pensions we can't rely on anymore. Some of those things are within our control, some of these things aren't. But what are we going to do about it? Are we just going to wallow in it? Are we going to say that I blame the government, etc.? Or are we going to educate ourselves? Are we going to create little pots that we can put savings into? Are we going to cut back on our spending and maybe downsize a little bit so we can have a little bit more room to play with? What are we actually going to do? Or are we just going to complain and stay where we are? Because that is not going to get us out of burnout. It's only going to keep us either where we are or send us hurtling towards it. So create smart goals for your recovery journey and actually think about it. Um, Break down large goals into smaller goals, actionable steps, and think to yourself, what are the milestones that I might be able to put? Because one of the things that you happen is if you only go from 1 to 100, then at any point between that, you don't feel like you've actually achieved anything. It's like the bamboo analogy that I mentioned before, is 5 years of watering a seed in the ground before it breaks. And then it's like 5 months to get to its fullest height. And so the extent is 5 years and 5 months. But can you imagine if you didn't water your seed for the first 5 years, you wouldn't have broke through the ground, and you actually don't have material or outwardly evidence of anything, any kind of change. And often life can feel like that. So if we don't put milestones in our road, we won't feel like there's anything happening. And sometimes they can be small. So if I have a financial goal, can I put, can I say that one milestone is I've opened an account? Boom, I'm done. A little bit of dopamine. I feel a little bit better. Okay, the next one is I put something into it. Okay, done. And I've set up a standing order. Boom, done. All these little hits that you can do towards it. If it's relationships, okay, cool. I've spoken to this person about my needs. Boom, done. Okay. Maybe I've gone to a networking event and I've met somebody. Okay, boom, I've done. Like I've set up a date with somebody who's a potential and it seemed really nice. Cool, done. I've gone to church or the mosque or something like that, and I've prayed for the first time in 3 or 5 years. Boom, done. There's something which you can say, okay, I have this goal to be somewhere, but there are little things that I can do along the way that make me feel like I'm moving towards it. Because another thing is stagnation. I've talked about that in another episode before, is that that we're not moving anywhere can also add stress to our lives, especially if internally we have the capacity to move, but we have no evidence of it. Okay, so you've reflected on your needs, you know exactly what you need, right? Then you've set your smart goals and you know exactly how, when you're going to get there. You've set milestones. They're achievable, so it's not something ridiculous. It's relevant to you, so it's not like I'm setting goals to go to the moon, but it's not necessarily that anything that might change my life or anything to do with what I'm doing right now. And it's time bound. I've decided when I want to feel like that. I want to be out of burnout by the end of the year. That means I have like 6 months to do these things, right? I've realized I haven't been doing my habits. I haven't been eating well, sleeping well, hydrating myself. I haven't had the right people around me. I've been doing destructive coping mechanisms. I've been turning to alcohol and all these other things for to feel better about myself, and I need to shift all that. So the first thing I'm going to do is stop doing some of these things or replace them with things that are a little bit healthier, and then I'm going to start to look at milestones to get there, right? The third step is visualization. Once you're clear on where you want to be, and this bit is something where I was thinking about, right? When we set a goal, and I'm not gonna lie, I used to poo-poo on. For me, I thought it was very woo-woo. I was like, why would people do this? And think so clearly about the thing and whatever. But then I started to do the research. And one of the things about me is if it is proven that there is no benefit in me keeping my mind exactly where it is if there's evidence to suggest otherwise, right? So there's too much in terms of evidence, people's accounts, as well as neurosurgical research that looks at the impact of visualizing something and drawing your mind towards it. The example I always give is the yellow lorry example. Or the pink elephant. If I tell you about a pink elephant, if I tell you not to think about a pink elephant, you're only going to be thinking about a pink elephant. And the way this works is your mind is currently absorbing information from everything you do all the time, but it's going into our subconscious, because if we were consciously aware of every little bit of information, our heads will explode. So it's built a system to be able to just think about the stuff that we need to think about, which means that you'll walk around the street and there's a lot of things you actually don't pick up on. But if I say yellow lorry, all of a sudden you'll notice the yellow lorries. It doesn't mean the yellow lorries were never there. It's just that now your mind is attuned towards that thing. So this can work in a positive or negative way. If I tell myself I'm worth nothing, if I tell myself I can't achieve something, if I tell myself that I'll never get that job, your mind will start looking for ways to prove yourself right. If I tell myself I'm going to get that job, I'm tell myself I'm going to I am capable of building a relationship that's healthy. If I tell myself I'm capable of moving up a rung up at work, if I tell myself I'm capable and I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, or whatever I want to do, right? Then my mind is attuned to finding ways to make that possible. It notices that yellow lorry, that opportunity to make that true, right? So if that job opportunity comes up on my LinkedIn page, I will notice it now, because I'm like, actually, not only is this what I want, I'm also capable of it, right? And I mentioned this because there's so many aspects of burnout. We often, obviously, if you look at the ICD-11, it talks about burnout in the capacity of work. But now we obviously know that work isn't the only space that people experience burnout. It's in families, there's new parents, it's relationships, it's just well-being and being connected to community, for example. All those things, or lack of, can send us towards burnout, right? So when you're thinking about some of those things, it's really important to think to yourself, how can I visualize this? What does it look like if I was to have this person, this thing, this place, this bank balance, whatever it is? Visualize it clearly and reflect on it daily, right? Renew your mind daily. So, but it's also important to attach high emotion to these goals. And this is what me personally I found to be the missing link with visualization, which is why I think it didn't work for me before, but it works for me now. Thinking about the idea is great, but you need to get yourself into the physiological state of excitement when you're thinking about it to be able to lock it in. So, for example, if I'm thinking about getting a job, I need to be thinking about, I've got the job. Like, I've got the job. I'm so happy I got the job. I'm excited. Everything has changed. This is an incredible opportunity. I need to be in that positive state. You can see how the energy just brought up. If I think to myself really clearly about role, sitting at that desk, having that impact on my clients and customers, having that impact with my team, having that impact with my line manager, and being supported, and all this kind of stuff, having that money in my account at the end of the month, all these kind of things, and being really, really clear, but in a positive, really extremely emotionally charged state, then it locks in. Yeah, then it locks in. And I've seen this change so many people. And I really do that. Like, we'll do an exercise where we're chilling, we're just talking. We'll get really specific and measurable, etc., about how they want to feel and when they want to feel it. But then I'll do an exercise to get them into that emotional state so they can lock it in. And the reason is that way, and you'll see this happening everywhere. If there was a memory that happened that was positive in your history, there'll be a smell or sound, a song, for example, or a person. Whenever you think about that person, you think about that experience and you feel it change within your body. Oh my gosh, I used to love that song. And in your head, you're thinking about dancing in your room the first time you heard it, etc. It's the same way we are emotionally attached back to highly emotional states and the things that were happening around those highly emotionally charged states. So if we can emotionally charge ourselves around the idea of getting this thing or being in this state in the future, then whenever we think about that, then that emotional state will come, right? And that's a really important part of visualization that isn't talked about as much, but is really important. Anchor, that's the word I was looking for. It anchors the visualization, the image and the emotion, anchor it into time. And it's really important because without it, it can be difficult to get motivated about an idea if you don't feel it, right? So achieving that high, attaching the high emotion to the goal creates the trigger around it, the anchor. And it's important to see yourself achieving it and channeling the emotion from the future to the present. Okay, how do I want to feel in that future, right? If I'm in the depth of burnout, how do I want to feel on the other side of this? When everything is going well and I'm out of it, what would that feel like? And try and think about the last, like I said, think about the last time you felt how you want to feel and try and project that into the future and be really clear about it and try to channel the emotion. Try and get into that positive state. You'll find it'll be really simple. Things like if I'm thinking about how I want to feel, but I'm hunched over, I haven't eaten all day, I haven't slept, I'm thinking about how I want to feel great in the next, but I just come out terribly busy day, for example, then I'm not going to anchor that in a positive way. And so when I think about the idea of getting out of burnout, it actually makes me feel worse because I can't connect myself emotionally. I need to, even things like bring the chest out, shoulders back, chin up, thinking to myself, I want to feel great. I want to feel expansive. I want to feel all these kind of things. That helps anchor it into the future and think to yourself in the future, but bring it into the present. Okay. And that bit happens by accident. Give it a try. The next time you feel in a negative state, change your physiology and think about how positive you want to feel on the other side of this experience. And you realize that that feeling will come into the present. All right. So you've reflected on your needs. So now you know what you actually need in the midst of burnout. You want to feel differently. You need finance support. You need friendship, whatever it might be. Right. You need something. Right. In one of the areas of the wheel of life. Number two, you've set smart goals on how you want to get it. And you sit and you think to yourself, okay, when am I going to get it? How am I going to get it? What support do I need to get it, etc. Right? You've got the milestones so that you don't have to wait until you actually get it to feel great. You feel great in increments on the way. So you know you're on the right track. Then you visualize it. Once you're clear about it, you visualize it. And you bring the emotion of the future into the present. So it anchors that idea, that emotion to that idea, right? The next step is seeking support because let's assume at this point you take action, right? Let's assume that. So maybe point 3.5 would be taking action. You start to make moves towards that. Number 4 is support. We really need accountability when it comes to certain things. We need not just accountability, but support in general. Having people around us. We are communal beings, right? We're not designed to do things alone. And you can see this by some of the oldest communities in the world are communities where they support each other. They still have friends. They're still active. They still give back to their communities even at the ages of 90, 100, 110 years old. And you'd have people, not just one person, but all of them will reach those ages because they have that community around them. We are designed to be communal beings. So reach out to family, friends, professionals, for example, for support. One of the things that ends up happening is when you're in burnout, you tend to isolate, which is the worst thing you can do. You isolate and you decide that you're going to do everything yourself. And if anything goes wrong, then it just keeps spiraling. We need support because then they can support you. They can um, lift you up in a way that you may not even realize you need at the time, right? It's like the difference between going to the gym by yourself, or going to the gym with other people, or having a personal trainer. Sometimes they're not necessarily doing anything that you couldn't do yourself, but they're just encouraging you to achieve better, to do more. And in this case, when it comes to getting out of burnout, it can be really important to have someone to say, "Hey, let's go to a spa together. Hey, let's catch up. We just get some good food, you know. Let's go to that event together. That thing that you want to do, yeah, let's do it." Making sure you have people around you who are going to be there with you, but also they can say, "Hey, I've noticed you haven't been coming out with us recently, but I know that's something that you wanted to do as part of your goals. Like, how can we change that?" Or, "Hey, I've noticed that you haven't eaten all day. Like, let's go and get something to eat." Having people who support you is so important when it comes to getting out of burnout. And it doesn't have to be your personal network, it can also be your professional. And I think we need to get rid of this stigma that says that if you need professional help, there's something wrong with you. First of all, there's something wrong with everybody. No one's perfect. So we need help in any way, shape, or form we can get. Life is life in, and we're not necessarily taught how to live it. A lot of the time, we kind of find out ourselves. So we need all the help we can get, right? So as you surround yourself with supportive network, it encourages you, it empowers you to do things that you may not have been able to do yourself. And one of those things might be to actually get out of burnout. Right. So the last thing, let's say, for example, you've done that now, you've reflected on your needs, you've set up your SMART goals so you know exactly how and when what it's going to look like to get out of burnout. You start to visualize it. So you bring the emotion of the future into the present. And then you seek support. So you've got the networking work system around you. You got everyone you need. They're supporting you. They're encouraging you, etc. The last one, right, is to track and adjust. So this is looking at monitoring your progress. So what is working and what isn't? Okay, we've tried this tool, this habit, this thing, and it was great for the first few weeks, but something went wrong, and now it's not having the same effect. What exactly is going wrong? What am I missing? Maybe it's not working. Maybe been a shift in my life at the moment. One of the things that is really good about this, and I said at the beginning for you to um, keep thinking about this from the beginning, is that this is what keeps you out of burnout, right? Is the monitoring, is the evaluation, and really think to myself, what is working, what isn't. Don't wait until you've crashed before you change your steering. Yeah. Keep it monitoring as it goes. What is working and what isn't? And really think about that. Think to yourself regularly, maybe once a week, once a month, once a year. You have sessions where you can sit to yourself and go back to your wheel of life and say, okay, how am I doing in these areas? Okay, I was at an 8 this time last year. Now I'm down to a 4. What happened? And life can happen, right? You might lose someone, you might go through a pandemic, you might change jobs, and you might get a new position at work, but then it comes with more responsibilities, and now you've got to learn different things, right? There might be all kinds of things that could happen. Change happens, right? The only thing that we know for sure is change. Change happens, but it can influence us in different ways, right? What if I want to take a pay cut just so I can keep myself for my friends and family, right? And I say, okay, cool. I'm not going to take that job because it would mean that I have to spend more time out. As much as money as it will give me, it means I will never see my kids, right? You might have to make those kind of decisions, and those decisions will have an impact on your emotional and your mental well-being. And acknowledging that, okay, cool, I went down because I didn't accept that job and I was really putting everything on the line for that. But then I realized there was something about it that didn't agree with me, and there's obviously something that doesn't agree with me now, right? So what are the things that have caused there to be some kind of change in my physiology, my beliefs, my being, my enjoyment of life? What are the things that have changed in time, and how can I adjust accordingly? Because if we just figure out a template that works with us for us in like 2024, but then something happens in 2025. We can't necessarily expect the same things that we did in 2024 to work in 2026 after whatever happens in 2025, right? So we need to really think to ourselves, okay, what is working and what isn't, and constantly be learning about different ways that we can do things. If something is working, keep it going, ride it till the wheels fall off. You don't need to change every time, unless it's part of your thing. Maybe you enjoy the idea of like doing different things or trying different things all the time. You get that little dopamine hit. Oh, okay, we'll find a new tactic with this person, or I'm following this new guru and they're saying we need to do this. Maybe the actual change of practice and not being doing things the same could be what excites you. For me, I try and incorporate that into the things that I'm maintaining. So, for example, I might decide every month fun that it doesn't matter what it is. I'm creating variety. I might go roller skating one day. I might go, I don't know, archery another day. I might go to a museum another day. I might go to a club night another day. I might start something like a program or something another day. Something that I enjoy, you know. I might just do nothing one day and binge an episode, a show on Netflix. Whatever it is, I might decide what those things are. For me, those are the kind of things that help keep me grounded, keep me lifted, shall we say, actually. So track your progress and adjust as you need, right? Especially when right now we're talking about recovering from burnout. Really pay attention to it. Celebrate the small victories, the wins, right? It was actually my business coach who first said, like, you know, you achieved all this stuff over the last year. Everything you said you were going to do, you've done. How have you celebrated that? And I was like, what do you mean? I just got on to my next goal. And she's like, nope, no, 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 no. You need to do something to mark this. And it goes back to what we said about visualization, right? So complete that success cycle. When we talked about when we talk about burnout, a lot of it is emotional, right? And one of the things I've said before is it's really important to complete your stress cycle. If something has brought stress in you, it's good to process it, but you need to do something at the end to mark it to your body that it is complete. So that might look like screaming at the top of a mountain. It might look like in yourself to some ice cream, whatever it is that you do, do something intentionally to tell yourself that, okay, I'm outside of that stress cycle. In the same way, on the flip side, if there is a goal I want to achieve that's going to get me out of burnout, and then I achieve that goal, I need to do something that celebrates it to let my body know that I have done it. Like, so if there is a win, I need to celebrate it, because otherwise, what is the point? Imagine what it does to your body, to your mind, to your emotions when you don't celebrate, when you don't acknowledge any of the wins. Even if you are achieving them, you'll feel nothing. So, and that can also be another thing that's going to drive you towards a burnout. Do something you enjoy, be around the people you like, do something that marks the occasion, right? If you're starting a business and it was like, or jumping from ship from a job and you want to go into another one, having a party, have a little celebration that's all about, hey, we're going to get some of my nearest and dearest together just to celebrate the fact that I've made this decision. I'm taking action over it. Boom. Okay, cool. Let's do it. Wicked. I've started the gym and I've said that I was going to do it for 30 days straight, and I've done that. Wicked. What am I going to do? Yeah, let me go on a little trip, for example. I'm going to go away for the weekend and make sure that place has a gym in the hotel. Like, you know, like what am I going to do to anchor that feeling so that you can keep yourself motivated? And if for one day, even the celebrations don't work, then I need to go back to adjusting. Okay, if this isn't working anymore, what do I need to change? Maybe it's that I don't need necessarily so many outward celebrations. Maybe I need an internal celebration. Maybe at the end of achieving this thing, I need to reflect on my beliefs about myself, who I believe me to be. Am I still capable? Am I still a good person? Or am I still um, able to express my gifts in certain ways? Am I still using my talents for good, or, or whatever it is? Like, think about the internal ones as well as the external. right? So I'm going to end there in terms of the 5 steps to creating your path to wellness. And to be honest, it can work in any kind of way, shape, or form. But really, today we're talking about using it to get out of burnout. So step 1 is to reflect on your needs and figure out how you want to feel when, that kind of thing. Step number 2 is setting your SMART goals to how you're going to achieve that and by when. Number 3 is visualizing. So getting yourself into a charged emotional state about how good it's going to feel when you do it, so that you can bring the positive feeling from the future into the present. Number 4 is seeking support, because sometimes it's difficult to achieve it alone, and we're not designed to do things alone anyway. And number 5 is to track your progress and adjust it as needed. If things are going wrong, what is going wrong? How can you change things to get there? Thank you so much. This is great. Oh, definitely. Thank you for that. Thank you. Definitely. And I'm going to save it on Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. If this is valuable to you or someone you might know, send it to them, share it to them, right? Don't hoard it to yourself. I think it was weird. I remember there was a feeling once where I was like sharing all this stuff valuable to people. And then I stopped sharing them because I thought I was just bombarding people with stuff. And then someone found out that I had seen a video that would have directly helped them, but I hadn't shared it. And then they got annoyed that I didn't share it because they knew that I knew what they were going through. And it actually didn't serve them, me not sharing it with them. And that's not for me, like as a plug for you to remind to share, but think genuinely, if you found it valuable and you think someone else might find it valuable, share it to them. Don't wait. They might read. And if you actually need help implementing this, I know it's like we work, right? You can say, okay, went on this live and I saw Dre's framework and it looks really good. But when I try and do it myself, it doesn't work. Like, I don't really understand that bit about SMART goals. I need some help. Or I tried the visualization thing, but how exactly do I get into this? How do I know that I've got the state right for me to create an anchor? Like, I'm looking for support, but I'm not sure where to go. Like, how do you build deep relationships with people when you're recovering from abandonment from previous relationships and friendships? Like, how exactly do I what's the best way to adjust when things go wrong? What other options are there? If you need help to actually implement these things, give me a call. So I obviously offer things like packages, and there's sessions that I offer as drop-in sessions, but there's also programs that are 6 and 12 weeks long. And if you need help doing that, then get in touch. Let's book it. If you're on LinkedIn or YouTube, you can look at this QR code, which is the same as this QR code, which will get you into my Tidycal, which is going to allow you to book a 30-minute session with me. And in that session, we'll talk about what you're going through, how you want to feel, how you want to get there. And I'll give you some little practical tools, a practical tip for you to use. But then if you need further help, then we can talk about how you can become a client. If you're on Instagram, DM me and I'll send you the link, and then we'll go through from there. I've already shared the live with friends. Amazing. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And just a reminder, this is going on every day of Mental Health Awareness Month. I'm doing these videos. And so if you have watched these and found them valuable, keep tuning in until the end of May. And if you've missed any, the best way is probably to either, because I think on Instagram, there are a few sessions at the beginning I missed. I didn't put them on Instagram. This is a learning opportunity for me as well about how to multi screen everything. So there's a few that's missing on there, but I think on the YouTube has everything. So if you have missed anything, go onto the YouTube page, the Ebola Global Coaching YouTube page, and on the lives tab, it has all of them written on there, right? Thank you so much for your time. I'm coming back again around 11 o'clock for another one, and then again 4 o'clock for the third one of the day. So because there was 2 I missed this month, so I'm basically playing catch up, and then it'll be back to normal from tomorrow. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you again